Hello, my name is Leann Kaiser, and I am a faculty member in the School of Education with the Adult Education and Training Specialization. I am very happy to be able to share with you today from my experience of teaching online for almost 20 years, and as well, my major area of research focus is on online teaching. The item I'd like to talk to you about today is the importance of engaging your learners online and how to do that. Honestly, this is probably the top concern that I hear from folks who teach online, whether they're brand new to it or have been doing it for some period of time. Most educators realize that if students are engaged, if they are interested, focused, working on the content of a course, almost everything else falls into place. So it may be that you may not be as tech savvy as you wish that you were, you may not be as familiar with Canvas, maybe you're still developing how to do online assessments correctly. There's a lot of pieces that fall into online learning. But quite honestly, if you can have a good understanding and spend a decent amount of time understanding how to engage students and how to keep them engaged, a lot of these other things do not matter as much, and the learning will fall into place. I would like to share with you this framework with these 7 items. This is something that I have developed over my years of research in online teaching and learning, and this essentially from my research as well as from best practices in the literature distills down the 7 major things that everybody should be doing when they're designing and teaching online. I'm not going to go over all 7 today since this is just a short video and a short bite, but I am going to focus on number 3, building an online community. This is probably one of the major pieces that you can utilize in order to engage your learners. Several of these others also focus on engagement as well. And if you would like to reach out to me at any point to talk about the other 6 that I'm not going to cover today, I would always be more than happy to talk with you. So in terms of building an online community in order to increase learner engagement, there are 2 things to look at, both creating a community between learners themselves and creating community between the learner and the instructor. I have a few suggestions here on how to do this, but again, if you are interested in this in more detail, I have a much more, a fuller document and a framework that I'm happy to share with you with additional ideas. So in terms of building a community between learners, the first thing, which is incredibly important to do, is to develop relationships between learners. Unless they already know each other, unless they're part of a cohort, this is something that you cannot count on to happen naturally, especially online. There is not that face-to-face, between-class interaction sort of camaraderie. As an online instructor, you need to do purposeful things in order to help folks develop those relationships. The easiest one is, of course, introductions when you first start a class, but I would highly encourage you to go beyond that. Have people share things throughout class. If you are talking about a topic, have them share an actual story of something related to that. I mentioned sharing things like autobiographies. Sometimes I like having students do what I call a cultural artifact, which is essentially having students share something from their background so people can get to know each other on an individual level. A second thing that I would encourage you to do in order to create community is to encourage all learners to participate in discussions and class activities. If you have a learner who pops in and out, who's here one week, is gone the next week, it is very difficult for folks to feel like they can rely and count on each other and feel safe continuing to work with each other in class. So this is something that you should definitely think about incorporating and then monitoring within your classes. The third suggestion is to create non-subject matter discussion areas. And these are things that are not related necessarily to the content of your class, but it's those places to allow people to really get to know and chat with and understand one another in the same way that they would as if they were in a face-to-face class and chatting during breaks between classes and whatnot. The fourth item for building that learner-to-learner community is to encourage interdependence during discussions. So this means folks and learners should not just rely on the instructor as the person that they will be hearing from during those discussions. They should be relying on their peers. They should be asking each other questions. They should be challenging each other on items that they might not quite understand. They should be sharing stories amongst themselves. And a final way that to build that learner-to-learner community is to encourage peer feedback on assignments. I particularly like to use this on early drafts of work. Students are working with each other to help increase their understanding of the content of the work. And it's not then just students trying to rely on the instructor for everything that they need. They realize that their peers also have knowledge and experience. Those are just 5 suggestions of how to build that learner-to-learner community. As I had mentioned, I have many, many more from years of experience and research and best practices. But these are 5 that are pretty easy to incorporate that can get you started. And that learner-to-learner community is a huge piece of helping students to feel that they understand each other, that they know each other, and that they're engaged with each other, and they want to be responsible to each other to continue to engage and be motivated to continue the work in class. The second piece of building the online community is building the learner-to-instructor relationship. So I have a few, again, easy examples of how to do this. Probably the first one, which is one of the most important, but one of the easiest, is just ensure you know students' preferred names and pronouns and use those. When you respond to a student in a discussion, use their preferred name. It may not be what shows up in Canvas. Sometimes folks might be Richard and they prefer Rich, or whatever it may be. Make sure to get that information early and use it. Second, give ample and frequent feedback and rewards. So typically how I do this is mostly within assignments that are graded. Students know that I'm a real person, that I am there for them, that they can count on me, and that their work matters when I am engaged with what they are showing me, with how they're learning, what sort of work they are producing. The next suggestion is to attend to individual concerns. At the beginning of a semester, I always have students send me an individual message where they tell me, here's my goals for the semester, but the most important thing I have them also tell me is, here are the things I'm concerned about that might affect my success in this class. And then I individually respond back to each of those students. If you have a particularly large class, this might be a little bit more difficult to do, but I would at least encourage folks to at least send these out, and then you can maybe monitor through the ones that really do need feedback from you. And then I continue to work with students. I don't just send out that initial message at the beginning of the semester, but I also do a midterm check-in with them. I ask them similar questions. What's helping you learn? What can be done to increase your learning? What struggles are you having that I can help you out with? I really keep a very, very open door policy so students know that they are not in an online class by themselves. They have somebody who cares about them, who is willing to listen and to work with them. That does an amazing amount to help keep students engaged. My last suggestion here is for the instructor to make sure that they actively monitor discussions and then answer questions that students can't answer, resolve conflicts, guide discussion. The important thing to note here is the instructor should not feel the need to respond to every student. There is no quicker way to turn a discussion into a one-on-one conversation between an instructor and a single student than to respond to everybody. But think carefully about where you need to be helpful. If people are really having trouble with a topic and they're really struggling, that's where you need to come in and provide clarification. If people ask a direct question, Dr. Kaiser, could you please help me to understand? Obviously, you need to come in there as well. If people are starting to get a little off track on the discussion, come back in and redirect the discussion. So your students need to know that you are actively there, that you are a part of the class, that you are listening, and that is going to do a huge amount to encourage students to continue to stay active and focused and engaged with what's going on in class. So again, just a few, I hope, very easy things that you can incorporate into a class to reach the most important goal of keeping students engaged and motivated. Again, my name is Dr. Leann Kaiser. I am more than happy to chat with you at any time if you would like to talk about building an online community or any of these other 6 tips in order to have a successful online learning experience and teaching experience.